What would you do if you discovered your children had been stealing from you for years? Would you cry? Would you forgive them? Or would you do what I did? Become the most dangerous thing a thief can face, a victim who's smarter than they are. The papers trembled in Juliana's hand as she thrust them toward my face. "Sign here, Mom. You're too senile to understand what's best for you anymore." I blinked slowly, letting my hand shake as I reached for the pen. They had no idea I'd been recording every word for 18 months. My kitchen in Charlotte had always been the heart of our family. This was where I'd taught Juliana to bake cookies when she was 6, where Adrian had done his homework at the table while I cooked dinner after 12-hour shifts, where I'd celebrated every birthday, every graduation, every milestone they'd ever reached. Now it was the place where they were trying to steal my house. Juliana stood to my left, her hospital scrub still crisp from her morning shift. Adrian leaned against my counter to my right, checking his phone every 30 seconds. They'd coordinated this, planned it, rehearsed their lines about what was best for me. "Mom, are you listening?" Juliana's voice was loud and slow, the way you talk to a confused child. "We need you to sign this power of attorney. It'll make everything easier when you can't manage your own affairs anymore. When, not if, when." I fumbled with my reading glasses, letting them slip down my nose. "I don't understand all these legal words, sweetheart. Can you explain it again?" Adrian sighed, loud and theatrical. "Mom, we've been over this 3 times. You're just signing paperwork so we can help you. That's all." That wasn't all. I'd read every word of their documents while they were in the bathroom. They wanted full control of my finances, my property, my medical decisions. They wanted to put me in a care facility and sell my $840,000 house. Split the money between themselves. My phone sat on the counter, screen dark, recording app running silently in the background. Every word, every dismissive tone, every lie. "Where do I sign?" I asked, my voice trembling just right. Juliana pointed to 3 lines highlighted in yellow. "Here, here, and here." I picked up the pen with shaking fingers. But while Adrian glanced at his phone and Juliana turned to grab her purse, I did something they never expected from their senile mother. I switched their power of attorney documents with the confession I'd written that morning. I signed my name clearly, steadily, on a document that read, "I, Regina Hartwell, of sound mind and body, acknowledge that I have allowed my children to believe I am mentally incapacitated in order to document their attempt to defraud me. If you ignore this warning, you won't see it coming in your family. Subscribe now so you recognize the signs early. If you won't, tell me why in the comments." I read every single one. I handed the papers back to Juliana with a confused smile. Did I do it right? "Perfect, Mom." She didn't even look at what I'd signed. Neither did Adrian. They left 20 minutes later, laughing in my driveway about how easy that had been. I watched them from my window, still playing the part. But I wasn't the confused old woman anymore. I was the forensic accountant who'd spent 40 years catching financial criminals. And I'd just caught my biggest case yet. They called me senile. The woman who spent 40 years tracking financial criminals for Bank of America. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so devastating. I sat alone in my kitchen after they left, not crying, but calculating. The performance was over. Now came the part they'd never see. The part where Regina Hartwell, retired senior forensic accountant, did what she did best. I built cases that destroyed people. Let me tell you who I really am, not who my children think I am. In 1978, I was 25 years old with 3 kids under 6 and a husband who just died of a heart attack. I had a high school diploma, $847 in savings, and a house payment I couldn't make. Every door I knocked on told me the same thing: no experience, no job. Bank of America took a chance on me as a file clerk. I worked that job for 2 years while taking night classes in accounting. When they offered me a position in their fraud detection department, I said yes before they finished the sentence. By 1985, I was tracking embezzlement schemes. By 1990, I was testifying in federal court. By 2000, I was training FBI agents on financial crime patterns. When I retired in 2018, I had 43 commendations and a reputation that made criminals nervous. I specialized in long-term fraud, the kind where thieves think they're too smart to get caught, the kind where they get comfortable, make mistakes, leave trails they don't even know exist. I learned patience. I learned documentation. I learned that the best way to catch a thief is to let them think they're winning. So when Adrian started using my credit card without permission in 2020, I didn't stop him. When Juliana forged my signature on checks in 2021, I didn't confront her. When they both started treating me like I was losing my mind in 2022, I played along because I was building a case. She spent 4 decades catching criminals. Now she's about to catch her own children. What would you do with that skill set? The folder on my laptop was labeled Family Emergency Fund. Juliana and Adrian thought that was the joint account where I'd been putting money for all of us. They were half right. It was an account, but it was also a surveillance operation. Inside that folder were 847 documented transactions spanning 3 years. Every forged check, photographed, every unauthorized credit card charge, tracked. Every lie about being broke, cross-referenced with luxury purchases made the same day. 3 years, 2 months, 11 days of evidence. I'd spent decades teaching criminals that patience always wins. Now I was going to teach that lesson to my own children. And unlike the criminals I'd caught before, these two had no idea they were already in handcuffs. The first unauthorized charge was $3,200 at a jewelry store in Raleigh. Adrian's anniversary gift to his wife, paid with my credit card. I remember that day clearly because it was also the day he told me he was too broke to help with his sister's birthday dinner. I pulled up my spreadsheet and started from the beginning. Every number told a story. Every transaction revealed character. March 2020, Adrian charged $3,200 at K Jewelers. That same week, he called asking me to cover his electric bill because business was slow. I paid his $340 electric bill with a check. He thanked me, voice thick with gratitude. He didn't mention the diamond bracelet his wife posted on Instagram 2 days later. June 2020. Juliana forged my signature on a $4,100 check made out to cash. She deposited it in her account using mobile banking. I found out when my mortgage payment bounced. When I asked her about it, confused and gentle, she told me I must have written it myself and forgotten. It happens at your age, Mom. I was 69 years old. My mind was sharp enough to track criminal enterprises worth millions. But sure, I'd forgotten writing a $4,000 check. September 2020. Adrian used my credit card for a $6,800 vacation to Myrtle Beach. The charges rolled in over 4 days. Resort, restaurants, jet ski rentals, parasailing. When he got back, he complained about how stressed he was from working so hard. Never mentioned the beach. I didn't either. Just added it to my files. The pattern was consistent and cruel. They took money while pretending to be broke. They bought luxury while I bought groceries on sale. They traveled while I canceled my own plans because I couldn't afford it. December 2020. Juliana charged $8,200 at Louis Vuitton. Christmas gifts for herself, probably. That same month, she asked me to babysit for 2 weeks because she couldn't afford daycare. I said yes. Watched her kids while she carried purses worth more than my car payment. By December 2022, the numbers were devastating. Forged checks, $34,000 across 17 separate incidents. Juliana's signature forgery got better with practice. By check number 12, even I had trouble telling it from my real signature. Unauthorized credit card charges, $67,000 across 49 transactions. Everything from jewelry to electronics to vacations I didn't take to restaurants I'd never heard of. Borrowed money, never repaid, $125,000. This category hurt the most because I'd given it willingly. Every time they promised to pay me back, every time I believed them, every time they forgot the loan existed the moment the check cleared. Joint account drains, $89,000 from the emergency fund I'd set up for all of us. Adrian had access. Adrian had plans. Adrian had expensive taste in failed investments. Total documented theft, $315,000. They stole over $300,000 while calling me confused. If you think this couldn't happen to you, you're already vulnerable. Subscribe to learn how these schemes work. Not subscribing? Drop a comment explaining why. Seriously, I want to understand. $315,000. That was the price of my maternal love, apparently. But the credit card fraud was just the surface. What Juliana had done with the house was far worse, and it was also a federal crime. I found the home equity loan documents in Juliana's car when I was looking for my sweater. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Juliana had come over for lunch, one of her checking on mom visits where she'd walk through my house looking at things with appraising eyes. She'd left her purse in her car, and I'd offered to grab it for her. The folder was on her passenger seat, labeled Mom's House Equity Release. My forensic training kicked in before my maternal instincts could stop me. I photographed every page with steady hands while standing in my own driveway. 23 pages, every single one of them a felony. Juliana had taken out a $340,000 home equity loan against my fully paid house. The house I'd bought in 1985 with my first promotion. The house I'd maintained with overtime pay and weekend work. The house I'd refinanced twice to pay for her college, her wedding, her life. She'd used a medical power of attorney I never signed. I knew the loan documents were fraudulent the moment I saw them. 40 years of fraud detection teaches you what real paperwork looks like. The signatures were wrong. The notary stamp was suspicious. The medical certification was fake. But it was the details that made my hands shake. The loan application listed me as mentally incapacitated due to advancing dementia. It included a doctor's note from a physician I'd never met, stating I was unable to manage my own affairs. It contained a power of attorney document with my signature, a signature Juliana had practiced until it was almost perfect. The loan had been active for 14 months. The paperwork was dated February 2022. She'd been planning this for over a year before I found it. I checked the disbursement records. $340,000 had been approved. Juliana had already drawn down $280,000 of it. On what? I did what I do best. I traced the money. $85,000, down payment on a rental property in her name only. The property I'd heard her husband complain about, the investment that was draining them. It wasn't draining them. It was my money. $62,000. Credit card debt payoff. Cards I didn't know existed, maxed out on purchases I'd never seen. $48,000. New SUV. The one she'd told me was a great lease deal. It wasn't leased. It was bought with cash, my cash. $35,000. Home renovation. New kitchen, new bathrooms, new deck. She'd invited me over to see it, accepted my compliments, never mentioned who paid for it. $28,000. Vacation to Europe. 2 weeks in Italy and France. She'd posted photos all over Facebook while telling me she couldn't afford to visit me for Thanksgiving. $22,000. Miscellaneous. Shopping, restaurants, spa treatments, jewelry. She'd spent $280,000 of my home equity on her lifestyle while telling me I was too confused to manage my own finances. The legal violations were stacking up faster than I could list them. Forged signature on POA documents, fraudulent loan application, identity theft, elder financial exploitation, bank fraud, federal crimes, every single one. She forged medical documents to steal her mother's house. How far would you go to protect yourself from your own family? I stood in my driveway, phone full of evidence, watching Juliana eat the lunch I'd made her through my kitchen window. She had no idea what I'd just found, no idea what was coming. The loan had been active for 14 months. She'd already spent $280,000 of it. But what she'd spent it on was about to make everything so much worse. Adrian had always been the business-minded one. Turns out his business mind was running a crypto pyramid scheme with my emergency fund as his seed capital. The joint account had been my idea back in 2019. I'd wanted a place where all 3 of my kids could access money in case of true emergency. Medical bills, car repairs, job loss, real problems that required immediate solutions. I'd put $95,000 into that account. Money I'd saved from my retirement bonuses, my pension surplus, my careful budgeting over 40 years. Adrian was the only one who'd ever touched it, and he'd touched all of it. I accessed the account online, something Adrian didn't think I knew how to do. The transaction history told a story that made my professional instincts scream. Starting in January 2021, Adrian had been making regular transfers out of our joint account into something called Apex Digital Ventures LLC, amounts ranging from $3,000 to $12,000, always round numbers, always on the 15th of the month. Apex Digital Ventures LLC didn't exist. I checked. Federal Business Registry, North Carolina Secretary of State, tax records, nothing. It was a shell company, Adrian's shell company. But that wasn't the worst part. Adrian had been sending me monthly statements showing the account was growing beautifully. Professional-looking documents with letterhead, charts, and projected returns. According to his fake statements, our $95,000 emergency fund had grown to $127,000. I pulled the real bank records. Our actual balance was $60,247. He transferred $89,000 into cryptocurrency investments that crashed. Then he'd produced fraudulent statements to hide the loss. Then he'd asked me for grocery money. I used my forensic skills to trace the crypto wallets. Blockchain analysis isn't complicated when you know what you're looking for. Every transaction leaves a permanent record. Every wallet has a history. Adrian had created an account on 3 different crypto exchanges. He'd bought Bitcoin at $62,000 per coin in March 2021. He'd bought Ethereum at $4,100 in April 2021. He'd invested in something called SafeMoon that turned out to be exactly the opposite of safe. The crypto crash of 2022 wiped out $71,000 of the $89,000 he'd stolen from our emergency fund. The remaining $18,000, that had gone to Adrian's personal expenses, mortgage payments, car payments, credit cards. He'd gambled with my retirement savings, lost almost everything, then used what was left to fund his own life. When I'd asked him about the account in December 2022, he'd smiled and shown me his fake statement. "Looking great, Mom. We're up almost 30%. Your emergency fund is safer than ever." I'd thanked him. Told him how grateful I was that he was so good with money. The transaction timestamps proved intent. He'd created the fake company before making the first transfer. He'd produced fraudulent statements within days of each withdrawal. This wasn't impulse. This wasn't desperation. This was planned theft. He gambled away nearly $90,000 of her savings on digital coins. One wrong family member can destroy decades of work. Subscribe so you know the red flags before they clean you out. I had enough evidence to put them both in prison, but prison wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel what I felt. The betrayal, the humiliation, the loss. So I started planning something far more permanent. "She won't even remember this conversation tomorrow," Juliana told Adrian over Thanksgiving dinner while I was in the bathroom. I was holding my new smartphone, recording every word. The recording app had become my closest companion. My children thought I'd bought the phone because I was finally trying to keep up with technology. They'd laughed about how I couldn't figure out basic features, how I asked the same questions about texting over and over. What they didn't know was that I'd taken a 3-hour tutorial at the Apple Store specifically to learn how to record without anyone knowing. The first recording happened by accident in March 2022. I'd left my phone on the kitchen counter while I went to get the mail. When I came back, Adrian and Juliana were in the kitchen, talking. I picked up my phone and realized the voice memo app had been running. "Mom's getting worse," Juliana had said. "We need to move faster on the house before she gets suspicious." Adrian had laughed. "She's not going to get suspicious. She can barely remember what day it is." I'd stood in my hallway holding that phone, listening to my own children plot against me. That's when the accident became a strategy. I started recording everything. Family dinners where I'd excuse myself to the bathroom, leaving my phone behind. Car rides where they thought I was napping in the back seat. Holiday gatherings where my purse sat on the couch, phone inside, capturing every conversation. I bought a voice-activated recorder and hid it in my living room bookshelf behind a photo of their father. Every time they visited, it captured their real opinions about me. The recordings were devastating. Juliana coaching Adrian. "Just keep telling her she's confused. Eventually she'll believe it herself." That's how this works. Both of them mocking memory lapses they'd invented. "Remember when we convinced her she'd already given us that money? She actually apologized for forgetting." Planning my future without asking me, "The nursing home in Hickory is cheap, $3,000 a month. We can split it." Discussing my assets like I was already dead. "Once we get the house sold, that's $400K each, minimum." Laughing about qualities they'd once loved. "She keeps asking the same questions. It's actually annoying now." Adrian, cold and certain. "She's too old to fight back anyway. What's she gonna do? Hire a lawyer?" Every night I'd sit alone in my bedroom, headphones on, listening to the recordings. Tears would stream down my face, but my hand stayed steady as I cataloged each file. I created a master spreadsheet linking every recording to corresponding financial transactions. When Juliana told Adrian on October 3rd that she'd handled the house paperwork, I matched it to the home equity loan dated October 1st. When Adrian bragged on December 12th about his investment strategy, I matched it to the crypto transfers on December 10th. 47 audio files, 300 pages of transcripts, an irrefutable timeline of conspiracy. For 18 months, she documented every lie. Would you have the patience to wait that long for justice? I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. I was building a case that would destroy them completely. I had 47 audio files, 300 pages of financial records, and a plan that would destroy them legally, financially, and socially. But first, I needed to secure what was mine. At 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, I walked into Thompson & Associates with a banker's box full of evidence. By 9:30 a.m., my children couldn't touch a single dollar I owned. I'd chosen my outfit carefully that morning, not the comfortable stretchy pants and oversized sweater I wore when they visited, not the old lady costume that made them comfortable in their lies. I wore the navy blue suit I'd kept from my banking days, the one I'd worn to federal court testimony, the one that said, "I am not confused, I am not helpless. I am the woman who built a career destroying people like you." The receptionist at Thompson & Associates looked surprised when I gave my name. "Mrs. Hartwell, we have you down for 9 a.m. "I'm early," I said. "I have a lot to cover." Attorney Michael Thompson had handled my estate planning for 15 years. He knew me as the careful, methodical client who read every document twice and asked detailed questions about tax implications. What he didn't know was that I'd spent 3 years building a criminal case against my own children. I set the banker's box on his conference table. "Michael, I need you to call someone from the FBI, specifically someone from the Financial Crimes Division, and I need you to do it now." His face went pale. "Regina, what's going on?" "I'm being robbed by my children, and I have evidence that will put them in federal prison." For the next 2 hours, I walked him and FBI Special Agent Morrison through everything. Every forged check, every fraudulent charge, every fake investment statement, every recording of them mocking me, planning against me, stealing from me. Agent Morrison took notes without speaking. When I finished, she looked at me with something like respect. "Mrs. Hartwell, how long have you been preparing this?" 3 years, 2 months, 11 days. Michael started drafting documents immediately. We had work to do, and we had to do it before my children realized what was happening. Revoked all powers of attorney, real and forged. Filed affidavits stating I'd never granted Juliana medical POA. Documented my full mental capacity with cognitive tests I'd taken the week before. Removed both children as beneficiaries on everything. Life insurance, retirement accounts, bank accounts, investment portfolios. Their names disappeared from my assets like they'd never existed. Created an irrevocable trust for my estate. Not even I could change it now. The terms were clear. Everything goes to charity. Nothing goes to thieves. Changed every password, every PIN, every security question. Alerted my bank to the fraud pattern. Filed police reports in 3 counties where crimes had occurred. Initiated a credit freeze. They couldn't open any more accounts in my name, take any more loans against my property, forge any more documents with my information. By noon, my assets were locked down tighter than a Federal Reserve. She locked down every asset while they still thought she was helpless. Delay costs everything in situations like this. Subscribe to stay ahead of predators. Still not subscribing? Comment your reason. Let's talk about it. The documentation is prosecution ready, Michael said. Regina, you've done the FBI's job for them. Good, I said. Because I want more than criminal charges. I want them to lose everything they built on my money. Agent Morrison smiled. Mrs. Hartwell, I think we can arrange that. The lawyers told me I had enough for criminal charges, but I wanted more than prison time. I wanted them to lose everything they'd built on my money, everything they'd taken for granted. So I made one more call, to the FBI field office in Charlotte. It was time for my children to meet the consequences they'd been running from their entire lives. Special Agent Morrison told me the knock would come at 6 a.m. on a Thursday. Maximum impact, she said. They'll still be in their pajamas. I slept perfectly that night for the first time in 3 years. The raids were coordinated. Adrian's house in Raleigh and Juliana's house in Charlotte hit simultaneously. The FBI doesn't take chances with conspirators who might warn each other. Agent Morrison called me at 6:17 a.m. It's done, both in custody. I was sitting in my kitchen with coffee, the same kitchen where they'd tried to make me sign away my house. The morning light came through the window exactly the way it had that day, but everything felt different now. Thank you, I said. Mrs. Hartwell, I've been doing this for 20 years. Most elder abuse cases fall apart because victims can't prove intent. Your evidence is the best I've ever seen. Textbook perfect. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, holding my coffee, thinking about what was happening 20 miles away. Federal agents at Adrian's door, the shock on his face when they announced themselves, the scramble to wake his wife, to find clothes, to understand what was happening. The handcuffs clicking shut while his neighbors watched from their windows, federal agents at Juliana's door, her screaming that there must be some mistake, her husband's confusion, her children's tears, her desperate calls to a lawyer who wouldn't answer at 6 a.m., the walk to the FBI vehicle in her bathrobe while her entire neighborhood saw. The charges were extensive: federal wire fraud, elder abuse violations, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, bank fraud, forgery of legal documents. Adrian faced 14 federal counts. Juliana faced 19. The forged power of attorney added layers of complexity to her crimes. Potential sentences, 15 to 20 years each. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt grief. I pulled out the old photo albums I kept in the hallway closet. Juliana's first day of kindergarten, her gap-toothed smile, her pink backpack bigger than her body. Adrian at his little league games, covered in dirt, holding up a trophy, so proud. These were the children I'd raised, the babies I'd rocked at 3 a.m., the toddlers I'd taught to read, the teenagers I'd stayed up worrying about when they were late coming home. When had they become people I didn't recognize? When had love turned into entitlement? When had I become nothing more than a bank account they could drain? I didn't go to the courthouse. I didn't need to see them in handcuffs to know justice was happening. The FBI thanked her for making their case airtight. Could you build evidence this methodically against your own family? Agent Morrison sent me updates throughout the day. Both denied everything. Both demanded lawyers. Both were denied bail due to flight risk and the severity of charges. By evening, the story had hit the local news. 2 Charlotte residents charged with elder financial abuse. The reporters didn't name me, but they named my children. Their mugshots appeared on TV. Adrian looked angry. Juliana looked terrified. I turned off the television. The arrests were just the legal consequences. The public humiliation, I was handling that myself, and I was about to burn down every reputation they'd built. I titled the PowerPoint presentation, Financial Elder Abuse, a Case Study. I sent it to 47 people. Their lives would never recover. The presentation took me 3 days to create. Not because I didn't have the information, I had 3 years of documentation, but because I wanted it perfect. No emotion, no anger, no bias that could be dismissed as a bitter old woman's revenge, just facts, dates, amounts, evidence. The format was clinical, the kind of presentation I used to give at Bank of America when training new fraud investigators. 23 slides, every claim supported by documents, every accusation backed by proof. Slide 1, Timeline of Financial Abuse, March 2020 through February 2023. Slides 2 and 8, Unauthorized credit card charges with photos of statements, dates, amounts, and what was purchased. Slides 9-12, Forged checks with side-by-side signature comparisons showing Juliana's forgery evolution. Slides 13-16, the home equity loan fraud, including the fake medical POA, the forged signatures, and the disbursement records showing where my $280,000 went. Slides 17-19, Adrian's cryptocurrency scheme with blockchain evidence and fake statements he'd created. Slides 2022, audio transcription excerpts, the most damning quotes, word for word, dated and timestamped. Slide 23, FBI press release confirming federal charges. I chose my recipients carefully, each one selected for maximum impact. Juliana's employer, the hospital administrator who supervised her nursing license. She'd stolen from her own mother while caring for other people's parents. Adrian's business partners, the men who'd trusted him with their investments while he was gambling with mine. Both of their spouses' families, people who deserved to know who their children had married. Their church congregation, 150 members who'd watched them take leadership roles while committing felonies. Neighborhood association presidents, the communities where they'd built reputations as upstanding citizens. Children's schools, not to harm my grandchildren, but to document concerns about parents facing federal charges. Professional licensing boards, Juliana's nursing license and Adrian's business certifications were built on lies. Local media contacts, anonymously with a note, elder abuse story, all documentation verified by FBI. I sent the emails at midnight, 47 identical messages with professional formatting and a simple note. This case represents a common crime that destroys families. All information has been verified by federal investigators. The accused are currently in FBI custody. By morning, the consequences had started. Juliana's hospital placed her on immediate suspension pending investigation. Her nursing license was under review. Patients' families were demanding answers about who'd been caring for their loved ones. Adrian's business partners filed an emergency lawsuit to remove him from their LLC. They'd discovered irregularities in their shared accounts that suddenly made sense. Their church removed them from all leadership positions. The pastor, who'd initially supported them publicly, called me to apologize after reviewing the evidence. Their neighbors stopped returning calls. School pickup became a walk of shame. Spouses' families demanded explanations that didn't exist. The local news picked up the story, not just as crime reporting, but as an investigation into elder abuse patterns. My children became the face of a national problem. She didn't just stop them, she made sure everyone knew exactly who they really were. Truth is the most powerful weapon. Subscribe so you never miss how justice actually works. Juliana posted on Facebook, "Our mentally ill mother has destroyed our family with false accusations. Please pray for her recovery." Adrian shared it. 2,000 people shared it within 6 hours. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Agent Morrison released a statement to the press confirming all charges were supported by extensive evidence gathered by the victim herself, a retired forensic accountant with 40 years of experience. The social media posts made them look worse, not better. People started commenting, "If the FBI has evidence, it's not false accusations." Within 72 hours, both their marriages were crumbling, their reputations were destroyed, their freedom was in jeopardy. But I still wasn't done. The inheritance they'd been counting on? That was my final move. "There must be some mistake," Adrian said when the lawyer told him the estate was worth $2.3 million. There was no mistake. He just didn't know where it was going. The meeting happened 2 weeks after their arrests. Both were out on bail, though it had cost them everything they could borrow. Their marriages were over. Both spouses had filed for divorce within days of seeing my presentation. Their legal bills were mounting. Their income had stopped. They were counting on my death to save them. Michael Thompson's office had never felt so cold. Adrian sat on one side of the conference table. Juliana sat on the other, as far from him as possible. They hadn't spoken to each other since their arrests. Each blamed the other for getting caught. They didn't look at me when I walked in. I'd come specifically for this moment. Michael cleared his throat. "We're here to review Mrs. Hartwell's estate planning. Mrs. Hartwell is in excellent health and sound mind, but she's requested this meeting to clarify her intentions." "Just read it," Juliana snapped. "We know what it says." "Very well." Michael opened the folder. "Mrs. Hartwell's estate has been professionally appraised at $2.3 million. This includes her primary residence valued at $840,000, investment portfolio worth $970,000, retirement accounts totaling $340,000, and life insurance policies worth $150,000. I watched Adrian do the math. Even split 3 ways with Peter, that was over $750,000 each. Enough to pay their legal fees, enough to rebuild, enough to survive. Hope flickered across his face for the first time in weeks. "The will was executed 4 months ago," Michael continued. "Properly witnessed, notarized, and legally binding." 4 months ago, Juliana's voice cracked. "That was before your arrests?" "Yes." Michael's voice was steady. "Mrs. Hartwell updated her will in February. She had full mental capacity, as documented by cognitive testing specifically requested for this purpose." Adrian leaned forward. "Just tell us the split." "There is no split," Michael said. "The entire estate goes to 2 organizations, the Alzheimer's Association and the Elder Justice Coalition. Your brother Peter is not named as a beneficiary. Neither are you." The silence lasted 5 seconds. Juliana screamed. Not words, just sound. Pure rage. Adrian sat frozen, his face white. "You can't do this," Juliana finally said. "We'll contest it. Undue influence." "You're not in your right mind." Mrs. Hartwell underwent comprehensive cognitive testing 2 weeks before executing this will. Michael interrupted. "She scored in the 97th percentile for her age group. 3 separate physicians have certified her full mental capacity. The will is uncontestable." "The donation will include a public dedication plaque," I said. My first words since entering the room. It reads, "In honor of adult children everywhere who mistake their parents' kindness for dementia. Given by Regina Hartwell, forensic accountant, who was never confused, just gathering evidence." Juliana lunged across the table. Security stopped her before she reached me. Adrian just sat there, finally understanding. The money they'd spent, the life they'd built, the future they'd planned. All of it was built on an inheritance that would never come. She gave away $2.3 million just to make sure they got nothing. Was it worth it? Tell me in the comments. They left the office in separate cars, their phones already ringing with bill collectors and lawyers. But my phone was ringing too, with an offer I'd been waiting for my entire life. I bought the condo in Savannah with cash. 3 bedrooms, wraparound balcony, and a view of the water I'd dreamed about for 47 years. I moved in on a Saturday morning while they were both in court. The realtor had shown me 5 properties. I'd chosen this one within 10 minutes. Historic district, 3rd floor, corner unit with windows facing east and south. The sunrise came through those windows like a promise I'd been waiting decades to keep. The movers arrived at 8 a.m. Professional service, the kind where they pack everything for you and unpack it at the destination. I'd never hired movers before. For 47 years, I'd moved furniture myself, packed my own boxes, saved money wherever I could. Not anymore. I brought only what I wanted. The photo albums stayed in Charlotte, donated to my grandchildren's other grandparents. The good china I'd saved for special occasions that never came, donated to Goodwill. The sensible furniture I'd bought on sale, left for the estate sale. What came with me to Savannah was different. Books I'd always wanted to read but never had time for. Art I'd seen in galleries but told myself I couldn't afford. Furniture I picked because I loved it, not because it was practical. Kitchen equipment for one person who cooks for pleasure, not obligation. My first purchase in Savannah was a set of designer sandals. Ridiculous, expensive, beautiful sandals that I'd never wear anywhere important. I threw away every pair of sensible shoes I owned. My second purchase was a set of herbs for the balcony. Basil, rosemary, thyme, not for feeding a family, for me. I framed my forensic accountant certifications and hung them in my home office. For 40 years, they'd been hidden in a drawer. I'd kept them quiet because Adrian once said, "Mom, you're not still bragging about that old job, are you?" Now they hung on my wall where morning light hit them. My neighbors introduced themselves that first week. Elaine and Stephen, retired teachers, balcony next to mine. They didn't ask about my children. They didn't ask why I'd moved alone. They asked if I played bridge, if I liked book clubs, if I wanted to join them for coffee on Thursday mornings. They saw me as Regina, not as someone's mother, not as someone's burden, just Regina. 3 weeks in, I stood on my balcony at sunset with a glass of wine, watching sailboats on the water. The air smelled like salt and freedom. The quiet felt like peace. I realized I didn't miss them. I missed who I'd thought they were. The children I'd raised in my mind, the grateful, loving adults I'd imagined they'd become. But I didn't miss reality. I didn't miss being called senile. I didn't miss watching them roll their eyes when I spoke. I didn't miss being treated like an ATM with memory problems. For the first time in 3 years, I slept through the night without waking up angry. I was finally free. But freedom came with an unexpected price, one I hadn't calculated in all my careful planning. The guilt was crushing me. 3 weeks into my new life, I woke up at 2 more a.m., wondering if I'd destroyed my grandchildren's lives along with their parents. The doubt was worse than the betrayal had been. I had 7 grandchildren, Adrian's 4, Emma, age 14, Tyler, age 12, Madison, age 9, and Blake, age 6. Juliana's 3, Maya, age 11, Jackson, age 8, and Rose, age 5. I hadn't seen any of them since the arrests. Their parents were facing prison. Their families were torn apart. Their homes were being sold to pay legal fees. And I was the reason. At 2 a.m. in my beautiful condo, guilt felt heavier than justice. I'd spent 40 years putting my children first, sacrificing everything for their comfort, their education, their dreams. And in one decision, I'd chosen myself instead. Was that selfish? Was I the villain in this story? I found a support group for victims of financial elder abuse. It met Tuesday evenings at a community center in Savannah. 12 people, ages 62 to 89, all dealing with theft by family members. Most of them had stayed silent, accepted the abuse, chosen family peace over their own dignity. "I didn't want to ruin Thanksgiving," one woman said. Her son had stolen $40,000. She'd never reported it. "They're still my kids," a man explained. His daughter had forged his name on a reverse mortgage. He'd refinanced to save her from fraud charges. Everyone had a reason for accepting it. Everyone except me. "You actually turned them in?" someone asked during my first meeting. "I built a case for 3 years," I said. "They're in federal prison now." The room went silent. After the meeting, 3 people approached me privately. They said they wished they'd had my courage. They said they admired my strength. But I didn't feel strong. I felt broken. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, specialist in family trauma. Our first session, she asked me one question that changed everything. Would you want a relationship built on lies, theft, and contempt? Or is being alone more honest? I sat there for a long time before answering. Being alone is more honest. "Then you didn't destroy your family," she said gently. "You just stopped pretending the destruction wasn't already there." That night, I started writing letters. 7 letters, 1 for each grandchild, to be delivered when they turned 18, along with full documentation of what their parents had done. I explained everything: the theft, the forgery, the recordings, the evidence. I also made them an offer. If they wanted a relationship with me based on honesty and respect, my door would always be open. No conditions, no strings, no money involved, just truth. Even justice comes with a price. The choice between family and dignity breaks thousands every day. Subscribe to see how these stories really end, not just the victory, but the aftermath. I sealed the 7 envelopes and gave them to my attorney for safekeeping. I was learning to live with my decision, but my children weren't. And what they did next would prove I'd made the right choice all along. The Facebook post went viral in Charlotte. "Our mentally ill mother has destroyed our family with false accusations. Please pray for her recovery." It had 2,000 shares in 6 hours. It was also defamation. Juliana had posted it first. Adrian shared it within minutes. By evening, both of their Facebook pages were filled with support from people who didn't know the truth. Praying for your family during this difficult time. Elder mental illness is so hard. Stay strong. My mother had dementia too. You're doing the right thing. They'd created a narrative where I was the villain, the confused old woman who'd lost her mind and destroyed her innocent children with paranoid delusions. They'd set up a GoFundMe, Legal Defense Against Elder Abuse. The description claimed they were victims of a mentally unstable mother who'd made false accusations to authorities. They were asking for $50,000 to fight the unjust charges. Within 12 hours, they'd raised $8,000. Fake accounts appeared, claiming to be concerned neighbors and family friends who'd witnessed Regina's decline. All posted similar stories about my supposed confusion, my supposed paranoia, my supposed mental illness. The Charlotte Observer ran a story, "Family Torn Apart by Elder Abuse Accusations." Juliana and Adrian were interviewed, crying on camera, talking about how much they loved me and how heartbroken they were that my dementia had led to this. I watched it all from my balcony in Savannah, drinking coffee, completely calm, because I'd been a forensic accountant for 40 years, and I knew exactly how to dismantle a lie. I called my attorney. Release everything. Within 24 hours, the full audio recordings were provided to media outlets, not excerpts, complete files, time-stamped, authenticated by FBI forensic analysis. Juliana's voice, "Just keep telling her she's confused. Eventually she'll believe it herself." Adrian's voice, "She's too old to fight back anyway." Both of them laughing about the senile act I was supposedly falling for. I provided my cognitive test results to journalists, scored in the 97th percentile for my age group, 3 doctors' certifications of full mental capacity. I shared the FBI press release confirming all charges were supported by extensive evidence, including financial records and recorded admissions of conspiracy. My attorney issued a cease and desist for defamation and filed a civil lawsuit for damages. The backlash was immediate. The audio recordings went viral. TikTok, YouTube, local news, national news. Too Senile to Understand became a meme mocking entitled Adult Children Everywhere. GoFundMe shut down their fundraiser for fraud and refunded all donations. More victims came forward. People who'd hired Adrian for investments that disappeared. Patients who'd noticed missing belongings when Juliana was their nurse. The Charlotte Observer ran a correction and a news story. Retired forensic accountant exposes children's fraud scheme. Their church pastor called me personally to apologize. I'm ashamed I believed them without seeing evidence. Our congregation now has a support group for elder abuse victims because of your courage. The social media posts disappeared. The fake accounts went silent. Juliana and Adrian deleted everything, but the internet never forgets. Screenshots lived forever. They tried to destroy her reputation one last time. Instead, they made her a viral symbol of fighting back. Have you ever watched someone's lies collapse in real time? The trial date was set. Their lawyers were begging for plea deals. And I received a letter I never expected, from the one child who'd stayed silent through everything. The envelope from Phoenix had my youngest son's handwriting. I almost threw it away. I'm glad I didn't. Peter had been silent through everything. The arrests, the media coverage, the trial preparations. While Adrian and Juliana fought publicly, Peter said nothing. I'd assumed he sided with them, or worse, that he simply didn't care. I sat on my balcony in Savannah, hands shaking as I opened the envelope. Inside was a 3-page letter in Peter's neat handwriting and a flash drive labeled Evidence. "Mom," it began, "I know you have no reason to trust any of us. I know I failed you by staying silent, but I need you to know the truth about why I left. He'd moved to Phoenix 6 years ago for a tech job opportunity. That was the story we'd all accepted. The real reason was escape. Adrian and Juliana tried to recruit me into their schemes when I was 28, he wrote. They wanted me to help convince you to take out a reverse mortgage so we could invest the money. When I refused, they told me I was betraying the family. The flash drive contained emails, dozens of them, dating back 7 years. Adrian to Peter. Mom's not getting any younger. We need to maximize our inheritance potential now. Juliana to Peter. Stop being so sensitive. She won't even remember we borrowed the money. Just tell her you need it for medical bills. Peter's responses, consistent and clear. No, leave me out of this. What you're doing is wrong. I moved to Phoenix because I couldn't watch them hurt you anymore. His letter continued. But I was a coward. I protected myself by leaving instead of protecting you by staying. I'm sorry. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking to be added back to the will. He was asking for a chance to rebuild a relationship based on honesty. My kids barely know you, he wrote. That's my fault. I kept distance from everyone to avoid Adrian and Juliana, but Emma and Owen deserve to know their grandmother. And I deserve a chance to be the son you raised me to be. I called him before I finished reading. He answered on the first ring. Mom? We talked for 2 hours. We cried. We laughed about memories from before everything fell apart. We acknowledged the years we'd lost. I made one thing clear. If we do this, it has to be honest, equal, respectful. I won't accept anything less anymore. I understand, Peter said. That's all I want too. 2 weeks later, Peter flew to Savannah with Emma, age 8, and Owen, age 11. We spent the weekend walking on the beach, cooking together, talking. My grandchildren asked questions about my life, my career, my move to Savannah. Real questions, curious questions. For the first time in years, I felt like someone's mother again. Not someone's ATM, someone's mother. I had gotten justice, liberation, and now, unexpectedly, I was getting family back. But the real family, not the performance. The trial was 2 weeks away, and I was finally ready to face them. I didn't attend the sentencing hearing. I was on my balcony in Savannah, watching pelicans dive for fish, when my lawyer called with the verdict. Adrian, 12 years federal prison. Juliana, 15 years. I felt nothing but relief. Both were convicted on all counts, Michael Thompson explained. Wire fraud, elder abuse, identity theft, conspiracy, bank fraud, forgery. The judge called it a calculated campaign of exploitation against a vulnerable family member. I almost laughed at vulnerable. But I understood. In the eyes of the law, every 72-year-old is vulnerable, even forensic accountants who build airtight cases. Mandatory restitution was ordered, Michael continued. $15,000 plus interest. The funds will come from their seized assets. You'll receive monthly payments. Donate them, I said. Everything goes to the Elder Justice Coalition. 6 months after sentencing, my life looked nothing like it had in Charlotte. Adrian was at FCI Butner in North Carolina. Juliana was at FCI Alderson in West Virginia. Both had been divorced by their spouses within weeks of conviction. Both had lost custody of their children. I received updates through my attorney, not because I asked, but because restitution payments required documentation. I donated every penny. My life in Savannah had become something I'd never expected, joyful. I volunteered as a consultant for the Elder Justice Coalition, teaching seniors how to recognize financial abuse patterns. My forensic training had a new purpose. I taught financial literacy classes at the community center, packed rooms, mostly women over 60, learning to protect themselves. Peter visited every 6 weeks with Emma and Owen. We built traditions: Saturday morning pancakes, beach walks, reading together on the balcony. Adrian's oldest daughter, Zoe, reached out when she turned 19. She'd read my letter. She wanted to understand. We talked for hours, building a relationship from honesty instead of obligation. 3 grandchildren in my life. 3 genuine relationships. I joined a book club, met a retired history professor named Gregory who made me laugh. We started having coffee on Thursday mornings, then dinner on Saturday nights, then quiet evenings on my balcony watching the sunset. I was writing a memoir about financial elder abuse. A publisher had contacted me after the media coverage. The working title, The Senile Act: How I Used Forensic Accounting to Expose My Children's Fraud. I spoke at conferences about fraud detection, standing ovations from audiences who understood that sometimes love requires boundaries. Every morning, I woke to sunrise over the water, coffee on the balcony, pelicans fishing in the waves, peace that I'd earned through 47 years of work and 3 years of patience. I'd spent decades confusing unconditional love with unconditional tolerance. I thought being a good mother meant accepting everything. I was wrong. The greatest gift I gave my children was finally teaching them about consequences. I just wish I'd done it 30 years earlier. This morning, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I am 73 years old. I have $1.8 million in assets. I have 3 grandchildren who love me for who I am, not what I can give them. I have a son who calls every Sunday just to talk. I have a view of the ocean. I have my dignity. I have my clarity. Most importantly, I have myself back.